Hello there, and welcome to another episode of The Inevitable. My name is Ed Lowe. I'm the head of editorial at MotorTrend, and this is MotorTrend's podcast on the future of, well, everything to dealing with the car. My co-host is, as always, Johnny Lieberman.
Hi.
And today we have a very special guest, and we're in a special situation. Johnny and I recently went to the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, Monterey Car Week, and I came back with the gift that keeps on giving, COVID. So we are isolating here. But while we were up at Monterey Car Week, we had a very special opportunity. I spent months and months and months, probably over a year, tracking down, trying to get on the calendar of the head of Ford, the CEO, Jim Farley, who basically actually kind of put us on this journey talking about mobility a long time ago. And we managed to do it. We scored time with him at his private personal garage up in Monterey, with all of his beautiful cars that he keeps on the West Coast. And we had a great hour-plus conversation with him.
It was fun. We had a good time. And just to spoil the ending, the best part was he has a Cobra, Shelby Cobra that him and his son built. 600 horsepower, 800 pound-feet of torque from a 600 cubic inch engine, which has nothing to do with the inevitable, but he forced Ed to drive it, and then I got to drive it too.
Right.
But
Yeah, it was amazing. It was all about, we were in there talking about the future of the company and EVs. And at the end, you guys might have seen some of the pictures. We normally try to take pictures with our guests, and he's like, I was like, wow, we should take a picture in front of your Hennessy GT500 Mustang, because that's like the most current vehicle you own. He's like, no, take a picture next to the Cobra. And then he demanded that we drive it.
Yeah, but the point is, he's not your typical CEO. He's and we've known this about Jim for a long time, back from his Scion days. He's a very intelligent person, very enthusiastic person. In fact, he won a race at Laguna Seca in another Cobra he owns just before he came and talked to us. And it's a pretty wide-ranging conversation. We talk about the new Mustang GTD. We talk about splitting Ford up into 3 separate companies. We talk about autonomy. We talked about
software-defined vehicles.
Yeah.
And for me personally, and again, this is just a little bit of a setup to the conversation, Jim Farley pulled me aside 3 Pebble Beaches ago now and kind of chewed my ear off, telling me that, hey, you're a MotorTrend. You guys aren't even talking about all of the changes that are coming to not just EVs, but software-defined vehicles and all the millions of lines of code that are coming to all these vehicles. These are important stories. You should get after it. So it's a little bit related to why Johnny and I are here, is his advice, more of his poking and prodding, that we start covering some of this stuff. And because the world is changing. And I think one of the biggest things we talk about are things like, Ford adopting Tesla's charging standard, the North American charging standard, which is a big thing. And we totally buried the lead here. We managed to talk to the head of Ford the day after he announced the Mustang GTD.
Yeah.
So
it
literally came out Thursday.
Street legal race car. Yeah.
Right. This thing came out on Thursday. We talked to him on Friday. So as Johnny mentioned, this crazy homologation race car special.
And if I may, there's a part in there where we talk about the size of the brakes. Both myself and Mr. Farley were wrong. They're 16.5-inch brakes. I just want to get that out of the way. But we should get to it because it really is a fun interview.
Yep.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford Motor Company.
Hey, Jim, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like I've been trying to get you onto our podcast for a couple of years now, ever since you
announced your own podcast.
Well,
yeah.
You
Are we in competition? No, but it was like, oh, this guy likes podcasts.
Really, you blew my mind a couple of years ago here at Pebble, talking about the coming software-defined vehicle changeover, the sea change that's happening, and I've been like, I gotta talk to Jim more about this, because you really sent me down a rabbit hole with that, and I got a lot of questions about that. But first,
before that,
we got to talk about something you might have announced here just a couple days ago, called
yesterday.
The Ford Mustang. Well, depends how you consider launching.
Right.
Ford Mustang GTD.
Yeah.
Well, what is it?
So I was very much like a lot of car people influenced by the 911 RS in 73. And that car was, not like a supercar. It was, like a Daytona at the time or a Miura. It was like a different kind of car. And all the pieces worked together kind of magically. And then and then I bought my first nice car, new car, 88 Ford GT 5-liter. And at the time, the 5-liter Mustang wasn't that far behind like 911 and cars like that.
Right.
And then I watched those brands just build these GT cars, the GT3 in the 90s. No one really saw them. They were in Europe. Then they started bringing them to the US, the 911R. And then they started building, GT2 RS, GT3 RS,
Sure.
GT4 RS.
Sure.
And, Aston Martin got into it and Mercedes got into it. And I always felt like, the Shelbys and the Z06s never really were competition for that kind of 911 RS, lightweight, well-balanced. But now everything's gotten so much more powerful and bigger. It's kind of been misinterpreted. When we decided to go big on racing with Mustang, from Aussie supercars to NHRA to NASCAR to GT4, GT3, then the amateur stuff with Dark Horse and Dark Horse R.
Formula D.
Yes, we wanted to get really serious with Mustang, to go to Le Mans, and then as soon as I saw the Le Mans race car, I was like, that makes no sense. This was like the first time Ford could do a GT3 RS competitor with the right tech, transaxle, tunable traction control, tunable ABS. We could even put DRS on the car, even though it's not legal in racing.
Yeah.
So we could even do stuff we don't do in racing. And maybe the road car could actually be just as fast as a race car in certain situations. But we need to have the best tech. So, and we saw the competitors leave the segment. A lot of our competitors just kind of left. And at the same time, most people don't know this, especially Americans, that the Mustang is now the best-selling coupe in the world, and sports coupe in the world. And we outsell 911 in many places around the world. Australia, Sweden's really big with Mustang. A lot of places that you wouldn't expect. So it made sense for us to kind of take a right turn from all the Shelbys and everything we'd be doing, and go after, the elite Europeans as an underdog. And so that car is the concept of that car is really simple. It's not a homologation car. It's a race car with more tech than the race car for the street to compete in that $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 GT class. And it's not a collectible car, although some people probably will, collect it. It's really kind of a track road car that you can use.
So how did it go down internally when somebody, I assume you said, hey, let's do this. Let's make a street car to this. Like, was that like, you're crazy? Because that was sort of our initial reaction. Wait, they're doing a $300,000 Mustang? Like, come on,
Yeah. There are all sorts of things about being a CEO. So, like, I don't know if I hear the truth a lot.
Boy, that's an understatement.
So I don't know if people are going to tell me like that's a bad idea. I hope they do. I think, I always just, I really trust people that should be trusted.
Okay.
So when I answer that question, I look at Mark Rushbrook, head of Ford Performance, and I look at Larry Holt, the head of Multimatic. Larry's designed pretty much every cool race car and production car I know, and so I looked at Larry and I said, "Can we beat the GT3 RS?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's gonna be a smoking hard problem." And I said, "Okay." And then I got and then the team started to get the memo.
So are you saying you saw the Le Mans car and that's when you made the decision to make this?
Yeah.
Like that late in the so how many months ago would this be?
Oh no, not months. We saw the simulation.
Okay.
We saw the simulation like over 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then
all the simulation, all the aero work, all of that stuff.
And when you say beat the GT3 RS, what do you mean by beat them? Beat them how?
It doesn't really matter. Like, however you guys evaluated GT3 RS.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be on the ring. It'll be your own tests. MotorTrend does these incredible sophisticated tests where sometimes you do like straightaway, then slalom, or then you'll go to a track and test it, willow or button willow, or you'll find your own way to test it. But when you look at it pound for pound, GT3 RS or GT3 versus us, same price, same different technical solution, very different technical solution. I think you're going to find it to be like fully competitive in a lot of ways better.
Okay. What was the biggest? You're the CEO, so I don't know that it's a hard sell. I probably should chat with the chief engineer of the project.
Yeah.
But what would be what's the most expensive thing you put in there in terms of like, oh my God, I can't believe we put.
I would say there were two big decisions on that car: the inboard, spool valve rear suspension. People will freak out when they drive a car with a prototype inboard suspension on it. And actually, you can see it from the front seat. Just turn around and you'll see the suspension working.
Yeah.
So that's like some kind of, automotive show-off stuff.
Okay.
And that was really hard to package because we never built the 7th generation to have an inboard suspension like
just
that.
So everyone's listening, like I remember when the Aston Martin 177 came out, and 77 built, $1 million each. It had inboard pushrod multimatics, but it wasn't spool valve. It was just regular inboard. And then the Lamborghini Aventador came out with that.
Right.
So it's an exotic way to do a car.
It's formula vehicle suspension.
Normally prototype race cars and the digital, and it's perfect timing for that technology on this car. I'd say that's one, and the other one is DRS. There was a lot of debate whether we want to put a DRS system because it's not required for racing. You have to set the downforce for the car for the whole race.
Right.
And to have a DRS system, where we get 10 or 15 more miles per hour top speed on straightaways was like a really big debate because there's no competitors that would require us to have that.
For those listening at home, drag reduction system. I feel like I don't need to explain that because there's so many fans of drivers who survive that they know DRS.
What's cool about our DRS system is it's on the front and the rear. It's not just on the rear.
Oh, cool.
Spoiler. There's a whole front slat system that works. It's fantastic. It really improves the aero, and so the balance of the car doesn't really change, even though you have low downforce. So I would say those are the two big ones. Okay. There was a little debate early on in the car whether we should do a V6 EcoBoost, because from an aero standpoint, we could put a little bit more aero in the car.
Weight, right? Wouldn't be a weight,
and it would really help the weight.
Okay.
And with BOP, there's a lot of more headroom if we put that.
Balance of performance.
Yeah, sorry. And so we decided with the V8.
Right, and it's related to the Raptor R V8?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a 5.2 liter supercharged GT500.
Yeah, it's really like, I get so many people come up to me and say, I really like really fast road cars. That Raptor R is the funnest car. I can drift it. It's got great brakes, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It's like super fast, and the damping makes it so soft. It's a great road trip truck. So that's the powertrain. It's bulletproof. We've tested with the GT500, and you could do a lot of tune to it. So it's got up headroom.
And the GT500, I remember we had it in it was our last best driver's car, I think. And I remember, the thing was legitimately chasing a Ferrari 488 around, like on its bumper.
Yes.
And it was like, because it was, and how groupthink gets on press launches, but like, it's too heavy. It's like, well, did you drive it? Oh, I loved it, but it's too heavy. I go, well, it's relative because like too heavy means that you're not enjoying it. Like, you can just say the phrase too heavy. But so that's when I was like, all right, like these really can take this much power and do something with it.
That's right.
So, but now it's like another 100 horsepower.
Yeah, at least 800.
At least 8. Okay.
You know how our car companies work. At least 800.
You guys are the masters of that. You guys, Ford has patented the at least.
At least.
But then, so is it? So I read it was 2,000 examples.
Yeah.
Is the
about $300,000.
Okay, and is that global or is that just U.S.?
Global.
It is global.
No, we homologated global right and left-hand drive. Oh no, this is like you're going to see in a Lake Como.
But how do you get like the splitter past like European pedestrian safety?
Sometimes we ship the car without it.
Thank you.
It's in the trunk, or dealer can install it.
Because I was showing some British people last night. They're like, and I go, I think he said it was global. They go, no, there's no way, it can't be done. I go, oh, he said.
It's weird.
Okay.
You might have spent some time in Europe. Tell me about the wing, though. Like, is that really necessary? Come on.
Yes, of course.
For sure, it's necessary. And actually, the wing was a big part of the identity, because you'll notice it's, the center of gravity for that wing is right over the rear axle. And most of our competitors don't have that. Their wing is attached like the boot or the rear deck lid.
Right. Way behind.
We didn't do that. So that wing location was very important for the performance of the vehicle.
If you're playing at home, if you Google the image of the vehicle, it's got this, the struts that support this enormous wing on the back penetrate the body of the car and basically are hard mounted right to the top of your suspension. Correct. Of the rear subframe, right? And this is so that all the downforce is applied directly over two of the four traction points on the vehicle.
The important one too.
Correct. Yes, the ones that are.
And then the brake. Did I read this right? The 20-inch front ceramic. How do you get 20-inch?
And I was actually really a little bit upset. That I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm a little upset that all the, intros, they like never, ceramic. Carbon ceramic brakes. I'm like, they're 20 inches. I'm in the back of the room going, 20 inches. So listen, Urus, I think the Lambo Urus has got like 17.
17.2.
Okay,
I'm a car numbers fetishist.
I'm impressed.
So so 440 millimeters, 17.2 inches, and for a long time the Bentley Mulsanne was the largest front brake caliper in the world, 15.5 inches, and then. There was a 16. It was game, and then it was the Urus and the Panamera and the Bentley.
I lost interest when they got bigger than the Miata wheels. I was like, come on. There are engineers right here going, this is not
doesn't
necessary.
like having fun. But I read 20, and I'm like, that's got to be a typo. It's got to be like it was 500 millimeters, and
it's crazy.
How does that fit anything? What are the size of the front wheels?
I don't know. They're big enough to fit 20s.
And then I read 325 front.
It's 4 inches wider than the standard.
The front looks like the rear tires on my 427 Cobra.
And then 345. Yeah. So I'm trying to think like a Chiron is like a 355 rear, maybe something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's a massive.
It is.
It's massive. So So it's a pretty extreme vehicle.
It is. Okay. People, we had to make. In fact, the body is wide enough that if it was a truck, we'd have to put the lights on top of the cab.
Oh wait, so you don't have to?
You don't have to do that?
No.
That's the greatest loophole ever.
Yeah, someone came up to us and they're like, "Oh, we got to put lights on the roof." I'm like, "What?" And then someone came in the room and said, no, that's for trucks only.
Oh, this is an Amazon. I'm going to do it. We'll put it on, we'll put it on Amazon.
You buy them? Yeah. Okay. That's great.
The last thing, though, because I want to move on and talk about the EVs and the software.
Sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I got to ask you about the name, though. Come on. Like, we went, when you dropped the name, we all looked it up, and we're like, I guess every other cool GT, GTA, GTB, GTC.
We tried everything.
You had a good one, too. That wasn't GT related.
What was mine? Oh, Mach 2. Yeah,
why'd you call it Mach 2?
Yeah.
Mach 2's faster than Mach 1?
Yeah.
True. But I think the Mach 1, Mach 2, that kind of fits into a certain predisposed definition of what the car could be. Look, the name was debated. We pretty much looked at every cool race course and every part of every race course to see if there was a name we could pick that hadn't been used.
Right.
And we couldn't find. Bentley owns so many of the cool names. And we had some great ones, Fairland. We had like some really cool names at Ford that we used, the Mercury Cyclone spoiler. We had some really cool aero names back in the day at Ford, but we really thought it'd be best just to tie it to the IMSA class.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So it's a little literal, and but I think I think what matters about the car is the tech and how it drives.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
the name usually comes along for the
Although,
ride.
GT800's got a certain ring to it.
I was going to say GTFO would be a good one, but I'll let you hear it.
Well, yeah, Joey Hand said it looks badass, so that would fit into that.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Okay.
Shifting gears.
A little bit here.
Bad pun.
Yes. I guess I just want to get this one out of the way because it's amazing, and I'm very curious. And this is a really hard pivot. NACS. So
Yes.
you guys made this. You kind of dropped the bomb on a lot of people by adopting Tesla's. What was it's the North American charging standard, but it's basically what Tesla's built over the last decade. 12,000 superchargers. It's access to that. The hardware will come in 2025 across Ford's vehicles. January. Okay. And
we're sending an adapter to all Ford EV customers.
Okay,
And,
cool. I just bought one.
And software that verifies it's a legal adapter. We don't want to hurt the supercharger network.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a lot of illegal adapters you can buy over the internet.
I think I bought an illegal adapter.
Yeah.
I did too.
Off Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Literally a year ago, last year at Pebble Beach, I sat across from you at the Inn in Spanish Bay at the Fire Pits, and we chatted with Elisa Priddle, and you mentioned actually in the interview, and I told my guys all about it, like, hey, he just said this. You savaged the CCS, the SAE charger. You're like, they break, they're unreliable,
They're garbage.
They do.
and you also complimented Teslas at the time. You said, these are amazing. I will assume that you had already made this decision to. No.
Oh, sorry. We had made the decision, but they hadn't.
So then November of that year is when they changed the name.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying you had already been in contact and working out that hey, if you open it up and you change it, we'll be on. How does that go? Let me just
Yeah,
cut to the chase.
about halfway through last year, we realized that we could be number 2 in the U.S., like 10 times lower than Tesla, but number 2 in EV sales. We didn't expect that. And Doug Fields and Alan Clark had come from Tesla through, Apple, in Doug's case, to Ford. And, the story that's really not been written about the industry's transformation is just the talent at the companies.
Yeah.
And, what I find is that the talent who can do an electric architecture or the EV components and design a vehicle differently than our prejudice is actually just a few people. There's just a few of them. Mm-hmm. It's like the racing community. There's like Phil Remington, and there's only one Phil Remington.
I'm glad you said Phil Remington.
Yeah,
he's a big hero of mine. So
he's amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
So there's, Doug Fields is like a really special engineer, like an American. He designed the Segway. He was number 1 employee of Segway. He designed the gyro, the whole thing when he was like in his 20s, right? Then he goes and designs MacBook and the OS and software at Apple. Then goes over to Tesla, designed the Model 3, which is a big pivot for them from S and X, fully software updatable vehicle, super simple engineering. And then he goes to Apple and comes back to Ford. So as soon as Doug got here, we started saying, hey, this charging thing's a problem, massive problem. And as soon as last year, like halfway through last year, a little bit before I talked to you, it became pretty clear to us that they had a huge advantage, like huge advantage. And it also became clear to us that our EV lineup is not going to be like others. It's 100% conquest business for us. So when people see our second cycle EVs, they're going to go, wow, those don't look anything like I expected from a traditional car company. So, when we saw that, we were like, but how cool would it be if we could join the Tesla supercharger network, and then the Tesla customers would be asking our customers about their Ford? We're like, well, that's pretty cool. And then the IRA came along in the fall, and it was like Tesla could get money from the federal government to increase the supercharger network. And so we had already been talking to them, but it kind of fell apart. As soon as the IRA thing got
Inflation
handled,
Reduction Act.
Then I was like, well, what if we could be the first of many, and we changed the standard, and then they could get support from the government to fund the supercharger network, and we get access to it. So every Ford customer or every Tesla customer who likes Ford vehicles didn't have to feel like they were going backwards.
Right.
And make a choice. And that's how it all came about. And I wound up texting Elon, who was like really gracious about it. He was like, we're on a mission here, Tesla. He wasn't, I'm sure there was a lot of pressure on him internally to say, no, that's that's one of the things that makes us different. But he was very gracious about it. And his head of technology is really practical person, and he saw the advantage of them expanding. And we became number 2 for sure. And we thought, look, if we did this, it would be good for our customers, good for Tesla, and I bet you the other car companies would have a decision to make. Do you want to side with customers, or do you want to do your own thing?
There's so much you just said, but I think you wanted to say something. I got a bunch of questions.
I was just going to say 2 things. One is like, within 30 days of you making that decision, Ford making that decision, everyone would switch. So what it meant, it's just crazy to me. Like, if you have an EV with CCS, it sucks. And I own an EV with one.
Yep.
And it's always like the worst part of it is like it's just awkward.
It's huge.
If you have a bag of groceries, like I'm pretty strong, I can't do it. With one hand. And so I mean, every car company in the world hated it and was just accepting it, which is crazy.
Agree.
Like what else?
Well, it's funny because
what other things are we doing?
Because when we had the conversation last year, in my head I was like, here's the CEO of Ford complaining about the state of charging. I mean, if there's anybody who could fix this, wouldn't it be him?
You told me that.
Funny.
I remember I saw you later that night.
Funny.
You told me that.
That's
I said,
funny.
well, SAE, you can't fight the SAE.
Well, so so much to talk about here.
Real quick though, I want to back up. I think the most, I don't want to say important, but what you said was Tesla chargers will be standing next to Ford. Tesla customers next to Ford customers. When I went to my first supercharger station back in 2012-13, what I observed was, oh my God, here's a bunch of people that just spent $100,000 on an untested product staring at each other and saying, you're smart too.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what is so smart about Tesla. Yeah, everyone can make an electric car, 2 motors, go, batteries, big deal. But like, this was the innovation, and I was shocked that nobody, like, yes, we saw Mercedes say they're going to do it. The Alliance was announced, last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But like, and I know you said, you realized, but like, why did it take so long? How come nobody else realized this?
I don't know.
Okay. Good answer.
I don't know. We have I think it's just we have a prejudice. That's why we split the business at Ford. I had actually no choice. Bill and I talked about it, and I said, our first generation EVs are great. I love the Mach-E, but like as far as making money, it's got like, the wiring harness is 70 pounds too heavy and it's 1.6 kilometers too long. The customer doesn't care how long it is. Our braking system is not, expensive enough. I hate to say it, because you could spend more on lighter weighting the wiring harness or a more sophisticated braking system for regen, and you could take $1,000 out of the battery. The battery changes the math completely on how a car is designed, because you want to take as much of that battery out. And to do that, you have a lot of big budget to invest in lightweighting, aero, more sophisticated light, all sorts of things. And I saw my team struggling, and we didn't have time. Tesla went through our industry like a 300 kilometer per hour Shinkansen, and I'm like on one of those little, Western push carts. I couldn't catch it. And that prejudice is really deep in these companies. I see the first gen products coming out from our competitors, first gen, like, real ground up EVs, and they're not competitive.
Right.
And I knew I couldn't catch Tesla or beat them if I just kept asking my team, who were just amazing engineers, look at the Bronco, look at the GTD. But, it's a different thing. And they're new customers. You're a conquest customer for us. Anyways, we have to change our thinking.
So that
we have to change our thinking.
That explains the split between Ford Blue Oval, and Ford Model E. So Blue Oval covers all the internal combustion, the nameplates and Ford Model E is going to be some of the some of the clever marketing is to make a Mustang as an EV,
Yes.
and to make a Lightning an EV. But
Yes.
that's the software-defined vehicles, EVs,
Correct.
everything going forward. And then
Correct.
Ford Pro is the business side of
Correct.
it.
Jim,
Right.
could you
Exactly.
explain? Because I think a lot of people don't. There's a lot. Look, the amount of fear, uncertainty, doubt in the EV
FUD.
space is just massive. But like, as a manufacturer, like, what's sexy about making, or maybe more profitable or easier or whatever about an EV than about a regular internal combustion? Because I always try to tell people, like, what Elon did was, like, he found a cheaper way to make cars once the price of the battery fell, and no one can hear that.
Right. So I think what Tesla did on the EV market is the execution of the product's kind of a marvel in itself. I don't want to make them into, a deity or something.
No,
but on the other hand, they did something.
First mover advantage.
Yeah, they really re-engineered the vehicle differently. Look, for the consumer, there are a couple things that an EV, there's a reason why people like EVs. Look, I started the business when I was at Lexus, and we used to be able to take a 3-liter V6, add a third of a liter displacement, and maybe 2 or 3 speeds on the transmission, throw a bunch of NVH at the car, maybe some nicer interiors and a better dealer experience, and the bill of material for that was $5,000, and we charged $10,000 more than a Camry.
Right.
And BMW, Mercedes, all those kind of Lexus, they all made their money based on that arbitrage. And with an EV and a digital product, a mainstream brand like Ford or Tesla has low NVH, great acceleration, and it has great tech in the car. And so this transition is going to be very hard for those people who make money off that $5,000.
Right.
And I think, so the first thing is you get a different driving experience with very low NVH, great torque, especially if you drive with one pedal. You get incredible reliability because the components, the internal combustion engine, which we all love, and transmission and rear axle, you move all that. That's all the stuff that goes bad, right. And when it does, it's super expensive and it's complicated. You remove all that. You make the car for 30% less labor content because you have 30% less part, maybe even more over time. The interior, because you can move the HVAC system into the trunk, because the motors and everything can be put really low. Packaging wise, you have a lot of space to put stuff in the front or the rear, but especially in the front, and you can relocate all the HVAC that goes in your dashboard, and you basically get an interior size above for the same exterior. Put the wheels on the outer edge, which is a human truth. Everyone loves larger wheels on the outer edge of the vehicle with low overhangs. It's just a natural kind of subconscious thing.
I mean, I'm looking at a Bentley and a Cobra that,
Yep.
that's kind of how they're designed.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So that's like a human truth.
Yeah.
And you also not only get sophisticated, you don't have to go to a gas station.
Right.
Which a lot of people, especially a lot of younger people, a lot of diverse customers, don't like going to the gas station. I like going to the gas station, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Normally the EVs come with better tech inside. The infotainment system's better, the connectivity's better. So now that only really works for a duty cycle or a driving cycle, that fits an EV. If you're towing a fifth wheel in Montana, like, it's a really bad solution. If you're towing anything, it's a bad solution today.
Yeah.
So I think for people who have a certain kind of duty cycle and a certain kind of garage, they may have one vehicle for long range if they go long range. If you want a vehicle for just, 100, 200 mile daily driving, and you like all those things, it's a better mousetrap.
Right.
So I think you shouldn't be scared of it. But you need to realize, though, that just like it did for the Model T versus a horse, when you go for a long distance for a vehicle that, was designed differently, you're going to have charging anxiety. And there's going to be a period of adaptation.
Right.
And I think, on my trip that I just did with my son for 1,000 miles, I saw the Tesla people, they're all inside their cars streaming because they're so used to doing this. that they don't overcharge.
Right.
They don't go to 80% or 90% if they only need 67 to make it home. They're inside being productive in their car. And the rest of us are over here trying to figure out what they already found out 3 years ago.
Right.
But we have like slow speed chargers. Some of them are broken.
They are always broken.
They can't be reserved.
I want to call that out because
also I want to talk about the road trip. But go ahead.
Yeah. I want to call that out because you did something rather unique in the lead up to coming up for Pebble Beach, and I was watching you on Instagram and LinkedIn because you were dual posting. You did a trip in a Lightning, and you were very honest about I think some of the struggles at charging at the current sort of charging system that we have.
I loved it,
including 40. You spent I think you said 40 minutes to get like 40% of your battery. Which
my son was just ripping on me the whole time. And he goes, Dad, there are 3 cars waiting for the 350 kilowatt charger over there. We just wait in line. I'm like, I'm not waiting in line. He's like, Dad, you're stupid. They're all going to be on there for 10 minutes. And in 40 minutes, you're going to get like 60%. And he was right.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, I do the same thing. Look, we have a show about EVs essentially.
Oh, okay.
I own an EV.
Yep.
But I do a lot of stuff where I go to try and charge.
Is that your 6 out there?
No. I have a Rivian.
Okay.
But I go to try and charge.
Yes.
And it's just a nightmare. And, and everyone's like, but you like EVs. I go, but I hate this experience. I was so happy when you did this road trip. I'm like, good, because it shows that you don't have to be like an evangelist at all times about everything. No. You can be honest.
Totally. And we're in the second inning of a 9-inning game. The first inning, enthusiasts like you. Second inning, we're going to different customers. They're going to be mostly, mainstream customers are going, what do I do here? Mm-hmm. And, we're tripling Lightning production from 50,000 to 150. We shut down the plant for 2 months, and we're just a week away from going to 150.
150, 100,000 a year. 150,000 Lightnings a year. Okay.
Yeah, we capacitized our Dearborn truck for 20,000. We doubled it, which we could do in the space, and then we just blew out the side of the building, and we spent the last 6 months rebuilding the building, actually while we're building the vehicle, and we're tripling to go to 150,000. That is really large-scale battery production, frankly.
Huge.
And it took a lot of years to prepare for the batteries. And so I wanted to get on the road because, I want to meet salespeople. I want to meet our customers, and I want to know what's good and what's not. Personally, I can't just go to a finance meeting or go to a meeting and my team go, Mr. Farley, this is what we're going to do. No, I think when you have to make big decisions, like what are we going to do with 150,000 units of capacity? Do we fill it? Do we cut production if the pricing is lower than we think? How important are these customers to us strategically? I can't find that out unless I get on the road. And a lot of cool things happen. I did it with my son. And he's 15, and
that's awesome.
We got to
You met The Rock.
Each other. I met The Rock.
You went to Galpin.
I went to Galpin. I
bought a Ford from Galpin.
You did?
Yeah,
those guys are amazing. I love their museum. I went to Bakersfield. I went to the Boneyard in Mojave.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
To see those airplanes. Yep. That was wicked cool.
I mean, if you like 747s, nowhere better on earth. Yeah.
So we do all our car of the year, truck of the year, SUV of the year testing out there. So
that is an amazing facility. The spaceport.
Yes, spaceport.
Mojave Spaceport.
Yeah. It's never bad to not understand your own country.
That's actually a Genchi Genbutsu, right?
Yep. Go and see with your eyes.
Go and see what's happening.
What besides, chargers aren't where they need to be? What else did you learn on the EV road
I learned that I learned all sorts of kind of crazy things. First of all, we have a fleet of like 30 Lightnings being used by Veritas that maintains most of the windmills in California. Mm-hmm. Huge company, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I went out there to ask the technicians, like, what do you like? And they're like, this thing is so freaking fast. And the boss is like, it's too fast. Can you make it slower? And then they're like, but Mr. Farley, I have to tell you, the coolest thing about this truck, and I expected them to say, like, it's quiet, or I feel good about what we're doing. He's like, the air conditioning is awesome.
That's something I would say. Yeah,
which I didn't realize, but like the air conditioning in a Lightning, because it fires up quicker. I didn't know that. I think the one pedal thing, like, I'm just surprised at how few people know about driving in one pedal. And the biggest thing I learned is that we are not prepared at the dealerships for all these questions.
Right.
Oh,
People don't know.
Right.
They don't know. They don't know.
You gotta
Right.
get the salespeople
Interesting. And it's funny. Oh, go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I just want to get off NACS. Just the
Okay.
one last question is, okay, and this is just I'm tossing you the most beautiful softball. Okay, you made this decision. I wrote a column about it. It's the most blindingly obvious but brilliant decision, right?
Yes.
Did you expect the rest of the industry to follow suit the way they
not
did
that.
and so quickly?
I expected them to follow because it's a no-brainer, and you never want to be on the wrong side of customers.
Okay.
And it's the right thing to do for customers. So I knew that, but I didn't know it would be so quick. So I have to give my competitors credit because they turned that around really quickly.
And it was, I mean, we're talking within, I feel like 30 days.
Yeah.
No, GM,
was the day
small
after.
company you might have heard of called General Motors.
Yeah.
They made the decision in 2 weeks. You spent months planning
We did.
this, right? And
We
then
did.
you did all the math. And
We
they're
did
like,
the contract really fast,
"Holy
but like the
crap."
negotiation, like getting there and getting everyone and all the lawyers and everything good, and all the details. Because to be honest, they hadn't wired up like the adapter, the software for the adapter, the time frame, is there going to be any cost or not? There wasn't in the end of the day. All that stuff took a little more time, but I was impressed. I really was. I was like, wow. They want to be on the right side of customers. I'm glad.
Right.
Okay.
But like I said, I think it also gets back to what the engineers must have known is like, man, this sucks. Like,
We were all talking about it.
Right,
Like you were
right.
saying, we're all like dropping our cords. They'd shatter. We'd have to go get a replacement. That's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And, we noticed on our test cars, they weren't as bad. And Doug said that. Doug's like, hey, we did a lot of testing at Tesla. We really wanted to make sure it worked.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So let's go there because your guy gave us a 30-minute warning about 10 minutes ago. Let's talk about software. Let's talk about what Doug does and
Yep.
another guy you just hired,
Peter.
Peter, yes, Peter Stern. So let's go there because we're going to talk with Doug tomorrow. Peter Stern is now president of a new part of the company called Ford Integrated Services, and this guy also is another Apple hire. He was vice president of services, Apple TV, iCloud, Apple News, Apple Books, Apple Arcade,
Yeah,
Apple One.
he did all that.
Apple, everything. Before that, Time Warner. It's all about subscriptions. It's all about software as a service for the consumer. Do I have that correct?
That's it.
Okay.
And also kind of internally the P&L, the profit and loss to run software as a business.
Okay. What on earth are you going to give the customer that's going to A, blow their socks off, and B, get them over what I perceive as the next challenge, right? If you think people have a problem with adopting electric vehicles, now get them to pay
I
for
gotta
stuff.
pay for my seat heaters in the car that I bought.
Pay for stuff in the car that they already have or used to.
That's
Why are you
not our
shaking your head?
direction.
Why are you shaking your head?
That is another company. Not
I
ours.
know. So,
we would never.
From Bavaria.
We
yes,
are not.
yes.
We are not going to charge. We're not going to charge people for something that they shouldn't be charged for.
But if I may for a second.
Let him continue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So look, I think the only rights that we have to charge for software is software that is created using the data off the car. Now, seat heater is data off the car, but it's not something that people expect to pay a subscription for. Right. It's not logical. That is a very 1.0 thinking from a car company.
Right.
We would never do that. So we see, like when the iPhone came out, you had email and music. Those are the first big shippable software to your phone for not using it as a phone. You could do email, you could do like a BlackBerry, or you could do music.
Yep.
We pretty much figured out in the auto industry, after stumbling around in the dark, what the first software ships are that are totally natural. But it's only the first inning. There's a whole nother 8 innings to come. And that is safety and security, camera data for insurance, using your Bronco as a game camera, warning you if there's an animal coming at night, another security link in your house, all sorts of safety and security. Another one, okay, the next one is productivity. So we do telematics for driver training, fuel card fraud. A lot of our pro customers give their electricians or plumbers fuel cards. We can now check the GPS of where the fuel car is used, where the vehicle is, and where they use the card to see if they're not using it for their personal life. We can sell fuel level data to the Hertz. So because it's one of their biggest expenses, because people lie about their fuel level.
Sure.
There's so productivity software.
Okay.
The ultimate on that one is predictive failure components. So very soon we can use AI. We know now that we can run a wiper motor, and I could tell you from the resistance inside the motor whether the wipers are gone. And so being really smart about the data off the car, we can do predictive failure before the component fails, especially a digital product like an EV. And that is so valuable for our pro customers, and will be valuable to retail customers. And the last one is semi-autonomy. And it'll start with hands off, and our ODD, or operating domain, that we want to really own is high speed, no car in front of you. So that's, hands off at 70 miles an hour. A lot of companies can do low speed traffic. You see that from Mercedes and NVIDIA and a lot of people. We don't think that's a hard problem. We don't think that's actually very interesting. We think the big unlock is going to be eyes off the road, high speed.
Yeah.
And we're starting with hands off with BlueCruise. And so those are the three areas. Now, when you take your hands off that BlueCruise from Mojave to LA, should I charge that as a subscription, or should I charge it as a usage? I kind of think it's cooler if we charge when you use it. And that's I talked to a lot of people at Cat and John Deere about this, because they've had automated tractors for a long time, and they've gone from a subscription model to usage. Peter Stern grew up in that world. Like, he knows everything about how to go to market. What's a gateway subscription? If you're going to go to a subscription, should all the services be non-connected so that everyone in the house can use it? Or should they be all the same? Car companies don't know how to go to market with software. Right. You need people who are from the Apples of the world, who sell services, even physical services, tied to software. If we have prognostics in the vehicle for our commercial customers, we have to fulfill it. When you say, yes, I'd like to repair the vehicle, we have to have someone come out and repair the vehicle, probably remotely. That's a physical service that goes with the software. So we need someone who knows how to go to market with those and make the right decisions. Software, subscription, maybe. Also, what gets commoditized? You may find that hands-free 70 miles an hour in 3 years is commoditized.
Right.
Costs nothing.
Right.
Like seat heaters.
Right.
So, you have to have someone who makes that judgment.
But
so Doug creates the platform, the embedded electrical architecture, all the sensors, to ship software to the car, and all the data coming off the car to generate it the right way to be useful. And Peter's the one who asks the software engineers to build software like predictive failure components, and then he's the one who goes to market with that. And we have 550,000 subscribers today for Ford software. 500,
and this
almost
is
a half a
mostly
million.
for pro.
Yeah, 80% are pro.
Okay.
But BlueCruise is growing like gangbusters. The average BlueCruise customer right now is paying us $80 a month.
Okay. Well,
For what? And what are they getting
For
that?
BlueCruise.
Just for
Hands-free.
Hands-free.
Because
You cannot imagine how interesting that is for customers. I didn't.
I was with another OEM, and they were doing some marketing stuff, and they said, here's 8 things you can subscribe to.
Oh, okay.
And the reaction in the room was like, we're going to kill you. Like it was all American. And
I think we have enough subscriptions.
That was part of it, but it was just but it's like the idea that, like, we're Americans, we've owned cars for so long. It's my car. I name my car. All this, and they were a Korean company, and they said, in Korea, people subscribe to all this stuff, and they don't care. They love it, And so, do you think it's a cultural thing with Americans?
No, because we're into it now.
Okay.
It could have been.
Okay.
But we're past the poetry of the whole thing. We're into the practicality. And I think what we found with Pro is that there's zero hesitation. In fact, I would say the brand differentiation for us on Pro is becoming more software than hardware. The Transit versus the Sprinter,
sure.
They're much more addicted to the software. So if we have better telematics than Geotab, they're going to go buy our car. And the monetization of that, it's interesting. What we're learning on Pro is that the monetization of software is actually after sales because they're loyal to you for service.
Right.
So actually, we make 40% margin on parts. So it's a great business. So you can't think of like this future second inning or first inning on software. It's going to be monetized on software. We may give software away to make money on after sales. Only 10% of our Pro customers do service with our dealers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're not, they don't think of us that way. But if we're predicting failure of all the components in their truck, it's probably going to be higher than 10%.
Right.
So so far this is great. This is exactly what I was wondering in terms of how are you going to deploy Peter? How are you going to use software to bring in new customers? I feel like you just talked to the small business owner, the guy who owns a fleet, and you talked to the guy who's driving the Transit or the Ford Pro Lightning. But sell it to the consumer.
Okay, I got that. I got that.
What is the feature that that's gonna blow their socks off?
First of all, you have to be on the outer edge of partial autonomy operating domain. That means that if you're among the first of the companies to offer eyes off the road at 70 miles an hour, and for a commute between Palmdale and Los Angeles, you can save 45 minutes and do other stuff.
Right.
People will pay a lot. All I know is when I turned in my Prius at Toyota, that HOV sticker was worth $5,000. So people are going to pay a lot of money to save time.
Right.
Now, but you first start on a sunny day, and then maybe you do off ramp, on ramp, and then maybe you have a sense, lighter starts. We figure out how to do lighter and light rain. You got to be on the outer edge because that is going to commoditize. If you're the fourth person to do it, you may only get half the pricing power. So the thing is, you got to be at the forefront. We don't believe, like Tesla, that the coolest problem to solve is urban, hands off, eyes off.
Right.
We think the coolest thing is highway, high speed highway.
Right.
And the gateway of that is hands free. So the first thing we're learning is there's a lot of pricing power for ADAS, especially hands free. And it's kind of like the steering wheel heater. I don't know about you guys, but when I first put the steering wheel heater on a Saab or whenever it was, I was like, oh,
yes,
this is amazing.
Yes.
I thought it was just heating the steering wheel. I feel warm my whole body. It's the same thing when you take your hands off the wheel and you start driving. It is your whole pressure, everything. You're on the I-5, it's fantastic.
But why? I don't want to pay for it monthly. I'm buying a car.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe usage. Maybe you buy it when you just use it.
It's $3 from here to...
For example...
I know, but what I'm saying, I understand that. What I'm saying is that would still annoy me. I just I'm paying you $80,000 for my nice whatever. Okay. Why isn't it included?
We could do that too. We can bundle it, and that's certainly what the car companies have always done.
Right.
But I think the better model is we pay for the hardware. You don't pay for it. But then you use the service.
But then I own something I can't use. I don't know. I struggle with that.
I agree. But the responsibility for us is make it more useful. We started with BlueCruise. Now we do lane change on BlueCruise. Mm-hmm. We noticed from the data that the most common place that people disconnect with BlueCruise is when they hit the turnstile.
100%. Yeah.
And now, in 4 months, we OTA'd turn signal lane change with BlueCruise, and it works great. Better than a human lane change, I would argue. So we have to keep making it better for you to go, yeah, I want to use that again, or I want to use it.
I totally understand your point.
But maybe
I'm just saying,
for you, bundling makes more sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe for someone else, their lifestyle changes, and suddenly they're using the car more on the highway. I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
In productivity, because I actually never met a commercial vehicle that didn't turn into a great retail vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Vans, trucks, they all are great retail vehicles. Same thing on software. So one of the things we're doing better than Geotab on productivity software is that we're going to limit the speed of the vehicle this quarter. We're shipping that now. And we're also shipping access. That means that on the weekend, if you have a company Super Duty, we can make sure you can't drive it on the weekend. as a personal vehicle.
Oh.
Yeah, and that could be controversial,
big
but
brother.
fleet owners really like it.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Are you saying, is this so? But for a retail customer, is this like a parent lockout?
Yeah,
thing? Yeah.
you could do
Look
that.
at you.
I have a 15-year-old driving, and what if she took the car?
Right.
At least I want to know about
Well,
it.
those were some of my best times in high school. When we
Yeah,
stole our
I don't want to
parents'
ruin it
cars.
for you guys, but us too. But
Right.
Jim
right.
Farley, joy killer. There you go. All right,
Big brother.
We
Thank
gotta-
you. Oh no, I get it. No, that's cool.
we
That's
got. I want to play some lightning right here because
it's first inning, right? We don't know what's going to happen.
No, I get it. And again, I understand subscriptions are coming.
But we're not going to do seat heaters.
Right.
Okay. That's no bueno. We're not going to charge for content. I think it's ridiculous. We lost that battle 20 years ago inside the car.
Nobody
Why
wants
would we ever
for
charge
content
to like get in the middle of your MotorTrend prescription?
Right.
Okay. So I love that, by the way, because I was going to ask you about this inning metaphor. I listened to your podcast. I listened to the one where you talked about it with Dax, about just using this metaphor of we're in a baseball game here. Just generally, though, because I want to get to some of the EV struggles that I think the industry's had. How's the baseball game going? Like, like if we are in the second inning, like has it gone the way you think? Like,
No.
I know
No.
you cut some of the production or the forecasting, but
Yeah.
Johnny and I particularly hear it a lot. We're on social media a lot, and the argument is, why do you guys keep promoting EVs? I hate EVs, and it's like, we don't. MotorTrend doesn't make the vehicles. We are reviewing them. The manufacturers have seen that everything you just said.
But also, there are some EVs we actually really like. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
then the
it's
bad
true.
ones we really hate, just like gasoline cars.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So is this going the way you think? And are there any things that you wish you had done differently?
I think generally it's going the way we think, but there have been a few very significant surprises. But generally, it's going, I think, according to plan in the sense that customers are smart. And if they have a duty cycle where an EV kind of fits, they tend to look at it, and the ones who buy tend to be really happy.
Yeah.
But as we go into the mainstream, there's a couple surprises. First, the traditional OEMs have struggled much more than I think the industry thought they would. Number two, the pricing power of an EV is not nearly as high as the cost of the components. And that puts tremendous pressure on the transition. Number three, the second order social problems of processing of raw materials, mining, all the rare earth materials we're going to need is proving to be a very difficult problem because of the geopolitics of our world. And the last one is, at least in the U.S., it's more than the U.S., but especially in the U.S., electric cars are becoming politicized.
Right.
And our industry has not been politicized. Our products haven't been politicized in a long time. We're at Ford, we're a little bit lucky because the segments we're picking to electrify, like pickup trucks, are kind of bring everyone together segments. But for a lot of OEMs, I think they're going to wind up getting caught in a lot of politics.
Well, let me challenge that a little bit.
The last one,
because especially with the pickup truck market, right? So F-150 Lightning, 2023 MotorTrend Truck of the Year.
Yep.
We love it. We've done a lot with it. We bought one. You know that. We bought one, and we have one that you guys are loaning us, so we can do testing in both our Detroit office and in Los Angeles. But so you're telling me you guys knew that you'd get a black eye on towing or like cold weather performance? Because we hear about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of math, right? I mean, look, the Lightning program was a challenger program. So it was not super popular inside the company, except for a few really talented people. And we engineered a great vehicle. It's a first, inning product in the best sense. You can't find an EV with that kind of interior room. If you have like 3 kids' seats, it's like pretty unusual. It can do a lot of cool things from the front to powering your house. Beyond just the acceleration is pretty remarkable for a vehicle. But it's math, right? Any electric vehicle you start towing with is really challenged because you're towing around the batteries, and everything is super heavy. So our philosophy in the second inning is actually really different. Is to go to as small battery as possible with fast charge for competitive range. We don't believe in building a pickup truck with 500-mile range. We'd rather have 300-mile range and 5-minute fast charge for another 150 miles.
Right.
Because you are carting around 200 miles worth of batteries, and you have to pay 20 grand for them, and it's really expensive, and it's not great for the planet, and it's wasteful. And oh, by the way, if you're really going to do heavy-duty towing, maybe a serial hybrid. There's a lot of other. I think the other one I should have mentioned is that we always thought about the EV transition like from HEV to full electric. What I'm finding now around the globe, the more I study China, the more it's true actually, is there's an infinite number of partial electrified solutions that the OEMs are all experimenting with now that will fit a number of duty cycles that don't fit a pure EV, and actually a partial EV is better than a hybrid.
Right.
And you'll start to see e-revs in China are a good example. What Li Auto's come out with, they're actually a very profitable company, by the way, because the batteries are smaller. But you go 200 kilometers on the battery, and then you have a combustion engine for that one trip, and it runs the batteries. There's a lot of partial electrified solutions that I think we're going to find work. Look at, I learned a lot today at the show, at the Quail. I went to Koenigsegg and Pagani and Hennessy, and then I went over to Rimac.
Rimac is how it's pronounced,
okay.
but
Thank you.
Rimac in America.
And it was like, and now maybe it's just me, but there was like no one there. And I've seen all the numbers on that car. It's the most amazing car technically, and I know that the leaders of that company are really talented. But when I talked to Christian at Koenigsegg, he was like, I was like, am I getting this wrong? Don't you think partial electrification is the right solution for high performance? He's like, totally.
Yeah, the only thing I counter with is I drove recently the Pininfarina Battista, which is the Rimats, but with
Beautiful.
a really gorgeous body.
Beautiful.
And dude, it's so good. Like, it's just 1,900 horsepower, and within 3 turns, I'm just flying. Handles great, brakes are great. And if you put it in front-wheel drive mode, it's still 670 horsepower and goes 300 miles. So, I get it. There's totally space for still to have V12s and 16-cylinder things. But, I think part of the problem with the Rimats Navara is that, the design isn't so hot. I think a hypercar has to also,
But there's a lot of motion beyond design. It's the whole way the car makes you feel. Beyond just the numbers. I'm not arguing with you. You know what I mean?
But I'll say just to the design real quick. The Battista and the Navara are the same car, and they've sold double the amount of Battistas. But guess what? One looks good.
Come on, let's get off the ultra hypercar that 4 people are going to buy.
Never.
Because we're gonna. That's probably the last question that we're going to have. But because you keep mentioning China, okay? You told me. I
study China really carefully.
And you told me to go get, and I have. I've been getting after it. First of all, you're still bullish despite all the price wars and the market. Okay, so that's a positive.
I think I'm bullish because this has always been a fact of life in our business. Whether it was the Model T or the Tesla Model Y or, I don't know, the BYD Corolla equivalent in China, a truism in our industry is that when new tech comes, it's maybe not perfect at first, but people really like it. Then everyone figures out, oh my God, we better do that. And then there's too much capacity. And then there's a price war. And then we figure it out together. And then there's new winners and losers.
Let me ask you the existential follow-up to that, because this is something that I heard.
People don't realize that Ford almost went bankrupt because of the Model T. We were literally 6 months away from bankruptcy.
Right. Well,
Model A saved our company.
Right.
In a similar vein, and this is I can't take credit for this, but I read I can't remember the article I read, but what if China doesn't need American mass market automotive brands? What if they actually say, you know what, we don't need Ford.
They don't need us.
You already accept that?
Yes.
Wow.
I would say that's already true. We already know that. If you look at VW, the largest Western brand in China, the VW Group's ICE share is 22%, I think, sometime. and I think their EV share is like 2%, 3%. And they invested in ID 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They already and all the Audis and everything. That's why they're doing this deal with SAIC and XPound. I'm sure they have to. No, what I'm saying is that while we're all in COVID, it turns out that what the OEMs are now going in the second inning to compete against Tesla all happened in China.
Yeah.
For the local brands, Geely, Great Wall, SAIC, Chang'an, XPeng, Li Auto, right. They all figured it out. It was a bit invisible to us. We couldn't travel there. And they started to figure out an industry. Now they're in the biggest price war globally of any EV industry. I mean, it is awful. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 companies out of 200 that are making money over there.
Yeah.
Tesla and maybe Li Auto, that's it. And maybe BYD if you include your plugins. But what we're seeing is a very predictable cycle and technology change. In 1905, a third of the global industry was steam, a third was electric, and a third was internal combustion. Model T comes along, democratizes the price, but we almost go bankrupt doing it. Then the Model A comes along, variety, V8, different colors. The industry then figured out pricing power because of variety. We probably took it too far with variety now, but it's a truism. And yes, we are bullish. We think that we can conquest a lot of customers. And we're going to do GTDs, and we're going to do Bronco Raptors, and we're going to do Transits and Super Duties for our pro customers. Ford has got a growth plan in 3 separate businesses. They rely on each other, actually, from the industrial system, the plants and the supply chain and the engineering. But as far as the outward business is concerned, they're very different customers. And so I believe that we'll get through this. The cool thing about Ford is our pro business is so profitable, it's more than offset the pricing war on our EV side.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Thank God we have our internal combustion and pro business right now.
Right. Well, I was going to say, but so today's 2023, 2035 is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Quicker than we all like. California, New York, which, it's a lot of people that are, you're not going to be able to sell internal combustion new vehicles. Do you think that's true? And what do you think? Predict if you go 12 years in the future, what are we looking at?
I think we're just getting in the second inning, and for us to sit here talking about the 8th inning is just totally impractical. Now, people have to do lawmaking about the 8th inning, but we always tell everyone the same thing after 120 years. For goodness sake, don't give us a patchwork of where we make logistics a nightmare for customers so you can drive to Nevada to get a car that's different than California.
Right.
So don't do a patchwork of, and most of all, write in flexibility. Because we've already had 5 surprises in the last 6 months. By 2035, how many surprises we're going to have? Right. And so from my standpoint, the general trend is kind of going in a certain direction.
Right.
And you can't ignore that. And don't get confused with all the noise in the middle, because the general trend is kind of going in a certain direction where EVs are pretty attractive for a lot of people. On the other hand, we don't really know what's going to happen, in the 8th inning. So let's just be flexible. Right. Let's do the right thing, but let's be flexible about this transition. Are we really going to outlaw Super Duties in California, the biggest ag state in the country?
Right.
Right.
But what if there's a battery breakthrough where it's, it's like...
Could be. Maybe hydrogen. I don't know.
Yeah, for Super Duties?
In 10 years... Battery electric Super Duties? I don't see it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well,
I can feel the handlers moving in.
Listen, this was awesome. My last question is, when can we have you on again?
Yes,
because there's
too short.
I know we only got
talk
probably 10% of what you guys want to talk about.
No.
Look, I just want to say I love MotorTrend. I love going to your garage and seeing all the cool projects. What I respect about your company, and actually you as professionals, is that you were the first really serious car folks to make the digital transition. You actually did in the media world what we are going through now in the second inning. And you're in like the 3rd or 4th inning where you've kind of figured out your business model. We're kind of getting there. You know, you'll probably never feel like you figured it out totally, but you're closer to it than a lot of. And I think, you know, I hope you guys give yourself credit for that, because I've watched you adapt and change to a digital media environment a lot better than most. And, you know, in the end of the day, this is all about the cars and the people, right? That's what this is all about.
That's very flattering. I wish I wish I could believe you, because holy moly, it's a struggle.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
But about the
Would you rather be in anywhere else?
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
No, this is
Thank
about-
God we don't make shampoo.
That's right.
Right.
On that note,
yeah.
thank you, thank you, Jim Farley, CEO
Yeah.
of Ford, for coming on The Inevitable. We only said it once, so you only get the bell ring once, and
Cool.
I said it. And yeah, love to have you on again.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I love what you guys do, and I can't wait to get to Le Mans with a Mustang.
All right, let's do it.